Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Enhance Your World show. I am one of the hosts, Chris Alba. Larkin is going to join us here momentarily. She's running a little bit late. So we're going to get started anyway. And when she jumps in, we'll continue the chat. So, addiction. We're going to talk about addiction today. This one's been a pretty big one in my life. I've personally had many different addictions, addictions to my identity, addictions to the way I lived, addictions to drugs and alcohol, coping mechanisms. So, this to me is a very important one because we cannot grow higher in our vibrational state if we are in some sort of addiction. The addiction can be, many different things, as we said. Personally, I like the definition that Gabor Mate has on addiction, which he states his definition of addiction is any behavior in which the individual finds temporary relief or pleasure in and craves for that reason, despite negative consequences. So if we look at it from that standpoint, what are your addictions, right? As I said, I've gone through many addictions in my life. I've overcome many addictions. I currently still have some addictions, right? And I'm working on those. The one that I'm currently working on specifically now is smoking, both tobacco and marijuana. And the marijuana has been something that I've done most of my life. And same thing with tobacco. There, I did have a 7-year break on tobacco, and picked those back up, in 2022, when I got into a new relationship. My partner wanted to start smoking again, and I chose to follow with her, and wanted to be supportive, and also knew that it was going to bring some healing to me in some way, because the way I quit before, it was really simple, right? All I did was visualize I got curious what my life would be without tobacco. I got curious about what life would be without, having to go break away from a conversation, having to go have a smoke, or what it would be like not to have those cravings, or to smell like tobacco, or to invest the money in tobacco, because it's quite expensive, especially if you have a daily habit. And the same thing with all my other addictions. I mean, to just lump them in, what helped me move past them was changing my habits. And then those lower frequency addictions, just kind of went away. They just got easier to deal with. Not that I didn't have withdrawal symptoms, not that I didn't have issues, but speaking of my cocaine addiction, when I was married, my wife and I both, used cocaine on a daily basis. I was in the entertainment industry, both adult, mainstream, and I was in nightclub promotions. So drugs and alcohol were a part of the environment. It was very easy to do those things, and no one really looked down on you. And I remember, I was going through some challenges in my life, and things were showing up that, that weren't in my highest alignment, and things like that with the cocaine. And, what it took was my house being robbed, and realizing that the reason that they were probably breaking into my house was because they had been in my house during a party, that I threw, and they saw how much money I had, and how much coke and other drugs that we had there, and all those things. I was an easy target. So when all that went down, it immediately put me into this place of, I need to change things in my life. And so what I did was I changed my phone number. I quit associating with the people that I was hanging out with. I closed my businesses down that supported that habit for about 6 months. And now I've been around it a bunch since then. People still party around me and, all that kind of stuff, but I have absolutely no desire to do it anymore. That's what I found about any of my addictions that I've had. I had to replace the lower frequency habit with a higher outcome and a new habit. And it starts with your daily diet. It starts with how you wake up each day. When I'm working with a client and they're wanting to change things up in their life, we try to find things that, might be challenging, but they're doable. Maybe starting off with like, stop eating fast food, or quit drinking soda, or something very, what seems to be insignificant. But what that does is working on something that's a little easier to tackle, will allow you to build that confidence and that self-love and that self-confidence and awareness that you are in control. And I can tell you, when you go to quit, hard drugs, alcohol, tobacco, all of them are going to have withdrawal symptoms, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. So we do have to work through those things. And that's where presence comes into play. The other day I was shooting some photography with a client of mine, and, we had been shooting for a few hours, and I could feel that craving. Oh, man, I really want to have a cigarette. And, I kind of just laughed at myself and said, yeah, I can understand that. But let's feel this anxiety. Let's feel it. Let's breathe through it and just sit with it and just be there with it. It's not wrong. It's not bad. Don't chase it away. Just let it be there. Love it, accept it, and just breathe. And as I did that, of course, within a few minutes, the craving went away. Now, that being said, if the consistency is, I don't want to smoke anymore, I have to do that for a period of time. Neuroscience tells us it takes 21 days to rewrite your neuroconnections. So within 21 days of us changing our behavior, changing the way we think, changing the way we feel consciously, it takes conscious effort. We will create a new subconscious program, and that subconscious program then will be running for us, and that will help us eliminate that. Using tobacco, the way that I quit in the past was I would still smoke, but I purposely, intentionally, and consciously didn't inhale cigarette. I didn't inhale it. So I was still giving myself a little bit of that physical sensation, but I wasn't getting an inhale. And after about a week of that, I realized that, I could just let it go. And it really did just fall away. And I went a couple days without it. And I was like, well, I wonder if, I'm done with these. And I lit up a cigarette and I was like, yep, done. And that's all it took. And the same thing with alcohol, same thing with cocaine. I was never really into heroin, even though I had tried it a few times. My brother was a heroin addict for 20 some years, and he really struggled with it, went through some really hard challenges, found himself in some legal challenges. He was actually homeless, living under a bridge. And, he got He was arrested a few times by, passing out in the car with, the needle in his arm. And so he had some legal challenges. He was court mandated rehab, in and out of rehab, had some struggles, but it was a near-death experience where I found him ODing, and my ex-wife and I were able to bring him back. That really gave him the wake-up call he needed to take what he had learned and apply it into his life. Now he is an active member of AA. He's very active in that process, and sponsoring people and holding space for people to overcome the challenges in their life now, and that's fantastic. What he did was, it seemed like he replaced the destructive habit, right, of using heroin, and replaced it with a bigger, more purposeful addiction of helping others. And now, he's in the process of letting go of other things in his life so he can serve in a higher way and be in better health and better well-being. And that's what we need to focus on. Thank you, Mark. Mark says, transparency and honesty shows how much your mentoring can help people. You go, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Mark. And that's key. Transparency, vulnerability. When we can get honest with ourselves and other people, man, there is nothing that we can't overcome together. And it's powerful. Hey, Ann Cush, thanks for tuning in. So that's the important thing to remember is, I remember going through at the beginning of my sales career, and people were just telling me, okay, this is all you have to do to go make X amount of dollars, or to achieve this result or whatever. And I'd be like, okay, I'm all over it. And I'd go do that. And then when I didn't get the result, it was hard for me to continue to do it, because the why, it wasn't really the how that was that important. It was the why. And as long as I could keep that why in place, that emotional tie to why I wanted to go out and be told no, why I wanted to go out and go out there and keep a positive mindset and keep my energy up and keep moving forward, even though the difficulties were there. That why is vital to success in any aspect. Why are you in relationship with this person? Why are you in doing the things that you're doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And what are the outcomes, the cause and effect? It's a universal law. We can't do anything. We are the causation of everything in our lives. There's nothing that we can do without affecting something else. So the more we can stay in that vibration and ask yourself, is this how I really want to be? That's why I titled this Breaking the Addiction of You, because you are in charge of you. No one else is responsible for you. No one else is responsible for me. However, we do affect each other. And that's sometimes what makes it really challenging in relationships, because if someone's not willing to acknowledge their part for a challenge in a relationship, it's going to be really hard to move through it. Now, when the two people or the three people or whatever arrangement is of relationships, if they stay committed to overcoming the challenges, the tribulations, the opportunities, as we would say on this show, right? Obstacles are opportunities. So when we get met with an obstacle, and we look at it as an opportunity. How can I overcome this? What can I learn? What can I do to be in a better vibration, to be in a higher vibration, to understand, to be compassionate? I used the tobacco story, earlier. And one of the things that I wrote on my blog way back in the very beginning of doing that was, as I was feeling all the crud and nicotine leaving my body and all the different things, I just was reminding myself, this is my body healing itself. I have done damage to my body by doing these things. And now that I'm reversing these things, I have to heal from them before it gets easier. And things go back into homeostasis and we fall back into our comfort, right? And, why did I pick up the smokes in the first place, after I laid them down for so many years? Because trust me, when I told people that I had started again, they couldn't believe it. I mean, the people that really loved and cared for me were really pissed off at me. And I said, man, I don't know. I just feel like there's something here that I need to learn. And what I've learned from all of these things is we can always go back. And that's why it's important to maintain our frequency of where we are and where we want to go and why it's important. Walking in more of an indigenous shamanistic path. For example, there's a lot of people that use tobacco. We use it in ceremonies and we use it in all these different things. And so it just seemed, again, it was very accepting, and it was like, oh yeah, I'd love to have that feeling again. So I went back to it, and what I learned was I can't say I made a mistake because I consciously chose it. What I experienced was I had to relearn something so I could unlearn it. I could let it go. And one of the things that have come up for me in ceremonies where we're using tobacco is the lungs are not for inhaling smoke. They're to inhale air. So if we're using tobacco in a ceremony where we're using to cleanse an altar or cleanse a space or something like that, what we do is we don't inhale. We can still use the plant. We can still make the prayer. We can still make the exhale, and that's totally fine. But you're not inhaling it, and if you're not inhaling the smoke, you're not creating such a negative effect. So these are some of the things that I've gone through in my personal life, both positive and negative, if you want to say that. In full transparency, as Mark says, that's the reason that I'm doing this podcast. That's the reason that I'm, coaching. That's the reason that I'm in the healing industry. It's because I want to be transparent. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be open. I want people to see that we all struggle. It's such an addiction of society where people are only talking about their good stuff and they're hiding the stuff in the back, and that's that, and they're in their home, nobody's watching them, and they're doing all these things. And then later it comes out, especially if it's public, if it's a public person, that they were doing these things. The relationship coach, is having secret affairs, or, whatever it is, the senators, doing some funky stuff, and they're caught. Think about what happened with the whole Epstein thing. We still don't know who was all part of that thing. Why? Because it would totally break apart the societal fabric. Because you chances are, if you were there, you had some big influence, whether you were a CEO, an actor, a congressman, whatever. And those names never got released. Why? Because it would have destroyed their public persona of who they've projected themselves to be. And a lot of CEOs disappeared. They just quietly went into the background at the time. A lot of things changed, very softly, because they didn't want this information to come out and destroy everything that they had built. And that is part of the process. I was thinking about this today, about surrender. One of the practices which allowed me to find myself in a vulnerable state was surrendering to the unknown. A total surrender. Say, I don't know what's going to happen here, but you know what? I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to let go of my discipline. I'm going to let go of my persona, my ego. I'm going to let go of control. I'm going to let go of my fears and insecurities and see what happens. They say that's how you get close to God, right? And I can tell you, it's been a very challenging experience, but I'm better off for it because I've experienced it. I've leveled up in my compassion, if you will, my empathy, my understanding, not only of myself but of other people, because my mind at the time just couldn't understand, couldn't process, because I hadn't had the experience. So I could understand it from an intellectual standpoint, but I couldn't truly accept it in my heart because I hadn't gone through it. And that was one of the things that I've gained from it. And now that they're no longer serving my highest good anymore, now I'm letting them go. And it's a process. And you're not a failure till you give up. And when you give up is saying, I can't do this. This is too hard. I mean, my mom has been a great example of quitting tobacco multiple times. She'd go cold turkey and she'd go a couple weeks, she'd go a couple months. And she's keeping track of, oh my God, it's been so many days. It's been since I haven't had one. And then you go over, I'd go over for a visit and, she's taking a couple puffs off one. She's like, well, and then next thing you know, she's right back at it. And that's how energy works. That's how the law of attraction works. I can remember when my ex-fiance and I were talking about this, and I was like, I'd be open to smoking some cigarettes with you, but I don't want to get addicted. I don't want this to be a habitual thing. And so at the very first, for the first few weeks, we were very intentional of not carrying cigarettes with us, that we were only smoking at our house and we were only smoking in certain situations. But then slowly, we started to let go of that discipline, and the reward was greater. And so then we got ourselves in that situation. And, when we separated, the first thing that I wanted to do was to let go of all those things, because that wasn't something that I wanted to do in the first place. And I can remember being very addicted to her, and addicted to overcoming the fact that we had separated. And I wanted to work things out, and I wanted to heal, and I wanted to understand, and I wanted to figure out, like, okay, well, where did we go wrong? How can we fix this? And my mind was so busy, and trying to make sense of the senseless, that I used it as a coping mechanism. I used it as a way to settle myself down. And now that we've been separated a year now, and I still don't have the resolution that I was hoping for, but I realized, like, hey, I only have control over me. And is this something that I want to be doing? Is this something that, do I want to go out there and work with other people and coach other people about overcoming the challenges in their lives? And I'm not willing to do that for myself. And that's an absolute I have too much integrity for that. Even though I can excuse it and I can say it's okay, and I can hold compassion for myself and others that are going through similar circumstances, it's not okay for me to continue. So now I get the opportunity to adapt and grow in new ways. Does that make sense? And have you guys ever gone through, that's some curiosity. What addictions do you guys think you've had or continue to have today that you're struggling with? Is there something that you'd like to let go of? And it doesn't have to be a forever thing. Sometimes it's just the short-term thing, because it's not necessarily detrimental to your health or well-being, but it's something that is needed to cleanse yourself. I like to, a couple times a year, I like to go on water fast, which means giving up everything. Caffeine, I don't drink sodas or anything like that, but I do like to have a couple cups of coffee in the morning. So when I give those up, sometimes I get a caffeine headache. Now I can just take a little bit of caffeine and the headache goes away. But then that's breaking my water fast. Or I can just continue to fast and say, I understand, body, you're freaking out because things are different and you're looking for that homeostasis that you're used to, and allow it to pass. And what I found for myself is if I just drink more water, those headaches tend to go away. So the hardest addiction I think we have as individuals and as a collective is the identity of self and how we got here. Our pain story, our pleasure story, who we think we are, who we have been in the past, who we want to be in the future. These identities are hard because they're formless. It's easier to say, look at a physical addiction, say to heroin, and go, yeah, that's not going to win anything. I had justified my addiction to coke because I had multiple businesses. I was working like 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it was like, I just need this to keep going. I can't get everything done if I'm not high. And that worked for a short period of time. And then all of a sudden that addiction started destroying things. Thank you, Mark. He said that he's had addictions to tobacco, bad relationships, bad habits that haven't served him. Yeah, I think everybody does too. That was one of the exciting things about this podcast today that I was really pumped up about is we all have addictions. I've even noticed, one of the things that's changed in my life is watching a little more TV than I used to be entertained a little bit more than I used to. I used to have a really strict regiment on myself that, if I was watching television, I was watching, some kind of documentary, something that was going to enhance my mind, something that, and, it all had to be, true and, true stories and, listen to lectures and, be super intellectual. But that was one of my addictions. And I kept people from getting too close to me by my mindset, because I had intellectualized so much that I wasn't really coming from a heart space, even though I was. A lot of times I would have something to say, or some kind of remedy. And I remember one of my friends and clients that we were working on her addictions, she said, well, how did you quit all these things? And I was like, well, I just did this. I just did more of this. I just did, instead of going for a smoke, I would work out. I'd go for a walk. I would do something to distract myself from that other thing, and then that craving would go away. And then next thing I knew, or next thing I realized, was that I wasn't indulging anymore. So yeah, I absolutely agree, Mark. I think it starts there. I think it all starts in our mind. I listen. I'm an observer. I observe people. I mean, that's something that I've done since I can't ever remember not doing it. Because as a child, I was always told one thing, and then um, I was told a thing, and then that authoritarian wouldn't follow the advice that they gave, and it never made sense to me. Well, how can you say this but do that? And So, when I was told that quitting cigarettes is hard, I'm like, it can't be that hard. And, I spent time in meditation and doing visualizations of what it would feel like to not have that addiction, what it would feel like to smell good and not have to feel that lower worth because you were doing something that was hurting yourself. And if you truly love yourself and you think you're worthy of a happy, healthy, and harmonious lifestyle, why are you doing the things that you're doing that causes you upset, pain, and separation from what it is you actually want? It all comes down to mindset. That's why I love Hermetics. They have some really good teachings in that. And, our reality is our mindset, because our mindset allows us to perceive things. Eckhart Tolle tells a story about, the ego. And the story is something like, the ego is like the police chief, that's investigating an arson, or, the fire marshal that's investigating an arsonist, and they never happen to find that person because it is them and they don't want to tell on themselves. And they don't want to get in trouble, right? So they just keep excusing it and keep finding, ways out of it. And I agree with Mark here where he says this, as humans in times of sadness and emotional upset, we tend to use one thing to ease another and not dealing with the cause. Point on. Christina, thank you so much. Thank you for being so vulnerable with everyone. We can't have connection unless we have vulnerability. Absolutely. I think it's a key. And what I've found, walking the path that I have, and, I've shared all kinds of stuff on this podcast. And I don't need to go through my resume of shadow stuff. But what I found from being vulnerable and open is no one can use it against you then, because you own it. And that to me is power. I remember a time, it was when I owned the talent agency, and a mom, called me up and she's cussing me out because, I have this naked woman on my website. And, I said, yeah, it's called implied nude. And absolutely. Can you see anything though? And she said, no, she's all covered up. It's just the way she was posed. And I was like, actually, believe it or not, she was actually dressed. But the way I posed her made her look like she wasn't wearing any clothes. And then I said, I came from the adult industry. I came from all that stuff. I totally know what it feels like, and what it looks like to exploit people. And one of the reasons that I opened up my talent agency at the time was I was tired of that. I didn't want to see any more people exploited, any more people trafficked or taken advantage of or anything like that, like I had trying to get in the industry. It took me going through the adult industry. I went to mainstream modeling gigs and mainstream modeling agencies and all that, and they loved me. They signed me and all that kind of stuff, and then they would charge me a ton of money to get photos and comp cards and portfolios and all those things to be able to do business, which is a part of investing in the business. I'm not saying that they're not necessary, but a lot of times these agencies or schools would make more money. I worked for one. I was making them over $30,000 a month recruiting people. And I was doing that because I was told that they had an 89% placement. So 89% of the people that I signed would get a gig. Well, then I found out that most of those gigs that they were counting were free gigs. Those aren't real gigs. Anyone can set up a free thing. What company isn't going to want a free promotion? But they did get experience. And that was the cool part about it. And so I'm not taken away from that. They were able to walk a fashion show. They were able to do whatever it was that they set out to do, even though they weren't getting financially compensated for it. And sometimes we have to do things for a little while without a financial return, because that's part of the investment. If it was easy, if it was just easy to do all the things all the time and get paid all the time, then, everybody would be a super mega success. Yes, Greg, it's live now. Speaking of Greg, I don't know much about Greg, but I've seen a lot of his videos. He does hand exercises. And I would love to have an opportunity to chat more with him about exactly what he's gone through and what he's had to overcome to get where he's at today. But man, there's some cool videos on dexterity and things like that. So keep up the good work, Greg Irwin. I really appreciate what you're doing. I haven't met anyone in my life that has achieved anything of significance without going through the valley, right? And the valley of the as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, right? Like that rap song gets stuck in my head thinking about that. But we all do that shadow walk. It's where we're not being seen, where we're not being encouraged, where we're not being valued, except for within ourself. Because if it's not within ourself, then as soon as we run into some adversity outside of ourself, we're done. But if we truly believe in ourselves and what we're doing, then we're going to be able to continue to move through it, right? So I'm happy to play a part and encouraging people to overcome their challenges in their life, whatever they are. They can be relationship issues. They can be addictions. They could, be working a job that, isn't speaking to them in ways that they want to be remembered. It could be anything because they all. That's awesome, though, Facebook user. No, I'm not an actual psychotherapist. I didn't go to school for that. And you're absolutely right, Mark. You have to do the shadow work. You have to do the unconscious work, which is questions, right? Why am I doing these things that are causing me harm or other people harm, and how can I shift some of those things, and some of those thoughts, some of those feelings, some of those behaviors? How can I rewrite them? It's said that we are the co-creator of our life, right? And I used to believe we were the creator of our life, and to some degree I think that's still true, because you can continue to move through, and the people that aren't following your path, aren't wanting to do the things that you're wanting to do. You're just leaving them behind and you're just blazing your own trail. But I say now co-creator, because I understand what's more important than us achieving our results is community, achieving community results. What Facebook user says, what we fear of doing most is usually what is most needed to do. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, in business, I can relate it to, just make that first phone call. Like when I used to have to do cold calls, and I'd have to psych myself up in the morning, right? Listen to some music and get into the groove. And once I got on the phone, it was super easy. And I would knock out 400, 500 cold calls in a day. That's why I was successful in that business, because I out prospect everybody else in the office. I was an animal about that. And that's where my confidence comes from. A lot of that other stuff is I know if I say I'm going to do it, I have the willpower. It's in my human design. It's, all that kind of stuff. Like it's there. Like if I decide this is the way this is going to happen, whatever, come hell, high water, come the floods, come the locusts, come all the things, we're going to make it through, because it's a choice, and making that committed choice is a hard thing to do. But once you make the choice, it's a decision. Robert Downey Jr. I was just watching his biography the other day, and they were going through, all his trials and his tribulations and all his addiction problems and all the things. And, he was on Oprah, and she was like, she said something to the effect like, well, how did you do it? And he said, I just made a decision. It was really easy once I made the decision. The hard part was making the decision and then just sticking with it. So, as we're wrapping up our show today, I'm going to ask you, the call to action, what decisions are you making on a daily basis that are moving you towards what you want or moving you away from it? Because there isn't such a thing as not making a choice. I can choose to meditate and get centered and get grounded and get into a better vibration. So then when I go to do something, maybe I'm going to do it in a better manner, better vibration, a better feeling, better whatever. Or I can just go do it and muff it up and fail forward. And I think that's, one of the things that I can say in my life that I've been really good at is failing forward. I'm a high school dropout, studied for 20 plus years on all these different things from all these different teachings and different philosophies and different ways of thinking, from Eastern to Western, philosophies and religions and neuroscience and all those different things. Like, I made a decision that I wasn't going to let my past keep me from living the future that I wanted. I was a high school dropout because I was in an abusive relationship with my father. And I thought at the time, the best thing that I could do was get out of that experience. And it's taken me 20 some years to realize that one of my biggest addictions and one of the things that's held me back the most is his approval. Because a lot of the things that I've done, he didn't agree with, but I did them anyway. And when I got the results that I thought I could get, when I could achieve that financial security, when I could achieve that whatever, or get my art published in magazines, shown all over the world, whatever it was, when he gave me that compliment and said, I don't know how you did it, but you've done everything you ever said you were going to do. That was one of the greatest compliments I've ever had. And still today, I haven't reached that place of where I've arrived, and I hope I'm never there. I hope I'm always growing. I hope I'm always being challenged and challenging myself and challenging other people to rise above their status quo of their woes. And you know, that's interesting. Facebook user, I'm sorry, I don't know that name. I'm trying to create a new sensory touch video, but having so much difficulty just doing it. I don't know what that means. You know, if you want to, if you want to expand on that a little bit more, I'd greatly appreciate it, because I'm kind of curious what that's all about. And we'll see if we can't help you out. Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Kennedy, absolutely. You know, if it was easy, everybody would do it, and there wouldn't be an opportunity. And if there wasn't, and if everybody was doing it, then you couldn't call yourself great, because you would just be like everybody else. What makes us stand out, without separating ourselves, without elevating our ego or making believe that we're better than other people or anything like that, is owning your path. Owning where you've been, owning where you are, and owning where you're going to go, and doing your damnedest not to hurt other people along the way. And the planet, in my mind. The reason, oh, hey, Greg, I think the reason why, it's got something to do with having to log in through StreamYard with Facebook. I think it talks about it down here in the little scroller thing. So you did show up for a minute, Greg, but now it's showing something else. So yeah, failing forward, love this, Chris Alba. Yeah, right. Because what if we thought about it like that? We're not falling behind, we're falling forward, because life itself is always growing. We're always moving through time and space. You know, it's our mind that gets stuck in the past or projects into the future. Our full body, our full beingness is always in the present moment. Our thoughts, feelings, behaviors, they separate us. But also they're just aspects of our separate self. And when we look at ourselves from a holistic standpoint, a whole standpoint, and saying, how is my mindset serving my feelings? How is my feelings serving my mindset and my behaviors? We can choose, we would choose probably to shift. Because if we're comfortable with where we're at, we're not growing. And that's only going to last for a little bit of time. And then we're going to find something to be dissatisfied about, because our body, our being, our soul, our spirit, whatever you want, always is the natural law. It's a natural law, the law of growth. Everything is constantly in a state of growth, one way or another. On a new century movement concept. I'd love to hear about that, Greg. I'd love to hear more about that and share my insights on that. Thank you for the opportunity. I mean, that's the reason that I created Gage, and have used Gage as a foundational program to help myself and other people overcome the challenges in our lives, because they're universal laws. They never change. They are always there. They're always consistent. They're in every teaching. You know, they might be called something else, but the reality of it is it's just fucking truth. uh, Mark says these conversations only prove how community and our community is growing. People are growing. If you're watching this, you are not alone at all. Yeah, let's talk about that, Greg, about how doing live together. That sounds like a lot of fun. Let's get that scheduled and let's make it happen. And going back to Mark's point, absolutely, we're all community. And so if people are shunning us, if people are blaming us, if people are shaming us, all those different things, how motivated do you think you're going to be, or we're going to be, or I'm going to be to go through those challenges and trials and tribulations? As Greg said earlier, we need to be supported. We need to be, we need to be encouraged. We need to be believed in, because sometimes we might lose a little belief in ourselves because we've just gone through some stuff and our cup isn't as full as it once was. How many people have ever gone through that experience? I know I have. When life kicks you down and you're trying to get yourself back up and dust yourself off, you're in a vulnerable state at that point. And that's where our friends, and that's where our family, and that's where our community come in and give us a little support, a little encouragement, even if they don't say anything, just by hanging out with you and allowing you to do certain things, as long as it's not being destructive to them, they're doing you a solid. I learned a long time ago, there's not much we have to do to help people grow and change. Just hold space for them and tell them that they can do it, and you believe in them and really fucking mean it. I know that's all I've ever needed. And, for me, it didn't come from my family structure. It came from people outside of my family structure. It came from the people that were making money off me, people that were wanting, to grow their business, and they wanted to use my skill sets and my energy to be able to do it. And you know what? I was all for it. I loved it. I ate it up. It's like, yum, 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 yum. Yeah, go me. Yeah. Give me another award. Woo, woo, woo. And just rocking and rolling, right? And what happened then was, when I would notice that they weren't being sincere. And when did that happen? When I tripped. The support would go away, the encouragement would go away, the dinners, the accolades, all the different things, they would just go away. And instead of encouraging me and say, hey, let's get back on the horse again. I had a really good sales manager for a few years in finance, and he was wonderful about helping me back up, picking people back up. He was phenomenal at that. And I remember he called me shortly after I got out of the business, and he wanted me to go to lunch. And, I knew at that point what he was doing. I was aware. And, I said, Pat, I would love to go to lunch with you. I love spending time with you. But if this is an attempt to get me to come back to the office, it's not going to happen, because what I'm doing now is what I want to be doing right now. I don't want to go back to finance. The industry is tanked because of 9/11, and I had to be someone that I wasn't, and pretend in certain aspects, and be more professional than I really was, because I was a leader and people had this expectation of what I should be, and sometimes I didn't want to play that role. Sometimes I just wanted to be a 20-year-old kid and 21-year-old kid, and have some freaking fun, have some freaking experiences. So when I got the opportunity to go into the entertainment industry, where that was encouraged, like, I was like, no, this is it for me right now. And it was great. And for a few years, and then the damage accumulated, and developed into some bad habits and addictions. And, it took some time you're welcome, Greg. I appreciate you as well. And thank you for that encouragement. He says, appreciate what you're doing. Feels like art talk for the mind. Yeah, it is. I think, I remember many years ago when I first got in this business, I was like, we're all artists by the way we relate through our life. How do you express yourself? That's your art, and we all do it in a different way. And it's a beautiful thing most of the time. Sometimes it's a little more painful than pleasurable, but you learn a lot, and that's an advantage. So, thank you so much. The hardest thing in life is overcoming yourself, because that means who you were needs to die and be reborn. Last year, and I'm gonna wrap it up after this. I'm gonna tell a little secret that I haven't told many people. But there was many times last year that I was close to suicide again. I hadn't felt that way in years. I was in a dark place. I was reaching out to the people that I thought I could count on, and I couldn't count on them. They weren't showing up for me. And I just remember sitting in my funk thinking, I could just take myself out. I would hurt people. But if possible. Hi, Larkin.
Hello.
I'm going to finish this one thought real quick, and then we'll get to it, right?
Oh, please do.
Okay, cool. So as I'm in this deep, dark place of contemplation, contemplating suicide, it came to me. What part of me has to die? Not the whole thing. What parts of me? The parts that are thinking the things that are causing me pain? The feelings, the heavy feelings that I'm feeling? The behaviors that aren't serving me? What parts of me have to die so I can be reborn and get that new start so I can be here today? And that's just doing the work. What's going on? What's going on, Larkin?
Hey, I'm out here with my horse Aspen.
Oh, hi, Aspen.
Here, she's grazing. I don't know if you can see her or not. The sun is so bright, But anyway, I'm out with my thoroughbred. I had to come to the barn early today, so there's vets here. There've been horses coughing, and so there's all sorts of horse drama going on. But we might have to start doing our broadcast in the evening. The horses are taking over my life. But anyway.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Well,
it'd be really awesome to be able to do our show together.
I know, wouldn't it? Seriously, it's like since I moved to having to I went from full board, which is I wouldn't trade for anything. It's awesome. But I got 4 of them, and my God, it's hard to run a business and take care of. I'm not even taking care of a full farm. And here's my other horse. Oh, wait a second. Oh, wrong way. That's my other horse somebody's taken out. I'm going to work with. Tempe. So, yeah, drama. But anyway, no, I think it fits really well with the topic today, actually, because, one of the things that I learned way before I ever went to graduate school for psychology was that you have to replace things with something. You can't just eliminate things. Once they have a pathway in your mind, an emotional pathway, and addiction is part of that. You have to replace it with something, and whether it's a substance abuse or whether it's just a behavior addiction, it's an interesting thing because animals are. I'm not saying they were a replacement for my addictions, but my point is they can be very healing and very helpful. And so there's all sorts of healthy outlets, but I don't know what some of the things that you shared today were, but I liked your topic, your idea of inner and outer,
Yeah.
inner and outer addiction, I think is very important.
Well, I think one of the hardest addictions to break is our belief.
Absolutely. Well, I think, I mean, one of the reasons that's important is because it's actually, that is actually one of the more important aspects of it in the first place, right? Some of the reasons that some of it is just biochemical, and some of it is actually, it's like the way that we think, right? Some of it is actually our belief systems to begin with, and that get us into those things, right? So, for example, if people believe that, they have to make $1 million in their business in the first 3 years, or they're a failure, and then they become addicted to something because they feel that they're a failure. That's based on your belief system.
Right.
So a lot of this is based on that, because our belief system and our consciousness of thought, separating our identity from thought, is a huge part of it. Because with that lack of awareness, our egoic self can take over, and then that's where our addictions can lie, right? They're always satisfying or fulfilling something, whether it's biochemical or not.
Right.
And I think, a good example of that, like, all my clients need to read The Power of Now from Eckhart Tolle, all my mindset clients. And if you study about Eckhart Tolle's wife, her whole life was changed from studying with him. She had numerous psychological disorders and mental disorders, and she'd been on medication her entire life with severe diagnosis. And, once she started studying consciousness and learning to be aware of her thoughts, all of that changed.
Right.
She took herself off all of her medication, and now she's a spiritual teacher. So I think, your topic today was really vital, because regardless, all of this begins with outside of us. And our ability to be influenced is so many different things. It can be hereditary, it can be mental and emotional, but it can also be our belief system and how we were raised. A lot of people are very easily influenced by things and will take the easy way out. Or you have people like me who always take the hard way out, which doesn't necessarily make life easy. But it's kind of the opposite, right? So I think this is something that people need to look within, and they need to, it's really all about self-awareness. Regardless of where you are with this, it is about self-awareness. And that's where our answers are going to lie as well. I'm sure you covered that.
Yep. Yeah, I started with Gabor Mate definition of addiction. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, it's even that, I've asked myself that, Larkin, like, why do I always have to learn through experience? Why can't I? Why can't I sometimes be more mindful about throwing caution to the wind sometimes, and having to learn the hard way? As I was sharing about my tobacco addiction, I mean, that's one of the things that I was sharing.
Well, I mean, I think once we get into substance addiction, even if it's chocolate, I mean, I'm addicted to caffeine and chocolate,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm addicted to Coca-Cola. I mean, I am. And the thing is that, when it becomes something physical like that, it's still basically the same thing, but we have to deal with it in a different way, right?
Right.
Because then it becomes, it gives our mind a different thing to hang on to. But I was telling our audience this yesterday in the Angels in Action, which is more of a metaphysical broadcast than this one, where we talk more mindset. But essentially, we need to be aware of the fact that it all comes down to awareness. No matter what you guys are dealing with, no matter what you're going through, whether it's addiction, whether it's something really severe, maybe you're addicted to bad relationships. Maybe you're addicted to self-sabotage. I mean, there are so many things we don't see as being addictions. And the cure for all of our struggles and suffering, this sounds like I'm making it such an easy blanket statement. And believe me, I know that it's not. But it's simpler than we think. The bottom line is it all comes down to awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Any struggling and suffering we have in our life is separation from who we truly are and source. Any healing that we truly have, any transformation that we truly make, and you don't have to take my word for it. You guys can go back and look at all the great masters and what Eckhart Tolle says, and you don't have to, this isn't coming from me. This is something that if we look back throughout history, all the great philosophers and theologians and everything that we have respect for, share this. It all comes down to, no matter what culture or spiritual belief you have, in the end, it comes down to awareness. It comes down to remembering who we are, and it comes down to consciousness. So when we have an addiction, we are separate from we're separate from God's source spirit, our self, essentially, consciousness. We have forgotten who we are. And we're here in this lifetime to have that opportunity to remember who we are in another form, because it strengthens that. So this is why all of my clients, my mindset clients, are required to read Eckhart Tolle. I've read that book nonstop now for over 25 years. Because it's like talking to living consciousness. Because, people don't want to do this. It's not exciting. They prefer to try different fun techniques that the ego finds entertaining. But the bottom line is the cure for all of these things is I don't want to say raising of the frequency, but the alignment of the frequency with remembering who you are. And that is awareness, period. Because everything that causes addiction and that you're struggling and suffering with is lack of consciousness. It's you being consciously asleep. And I know that makes it sound simple. I know that this isn't easy, so believe me, I'm not belittling this. But ultimately, that's where everything leads. And if you look at all of the programs or counseling and therapy that make any difference, it's all, to some extent, a level of consciousness, a level of self-awareness. And when you understand yourself, then you understand the world, or you understand that there are certain aspects you can't understand, and you're okay with that. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there for today, because I think it's really important. We look at all these techniques and tactics and all these things, but the truth is that within all of that, the significance is the awareness.
Right.
So.
Well, you want to wrap you want to wrap us up?
I think I just did.
All right, cool. And absolutely,
Awesome and amazing. You guys can have one more glance at my beautiful horse. I don't even know if you can see her, honestly. I can't see with the sun. Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
There you go. I don't think you can see her. I can't see through the sun, but she's gorgeous.
Thank you so much for everyone being a part of this podcast, all the beautiful comments and participation. Thank you. Thank you, Larkin, for coming in live at the barn and being a part of the show. And
thank you for this awesome topic, Chris, and sharing some of yourself with us. I think that's, that is really important, because there's nothing like experience.
Well, and yeah, can't say that I think that was part of the reason that I had the experience, so I could share it.
I agree with you. I agree with that.
So, but everybody have a wonderful day. We'll catch you next week on Tuesday, starting at noon, unless we change things, and then we'll make an announcement about that. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, the Enhance Your World Show. You can find us on Facebook and multiple groups and all that. So thanks so much. Appreciate you. And see you next week.
Bye, everybody.